All right, Ambush. Today we are joined by the bass player for one of my personal favorite bands, but also one of the most renowned bands to come out of the Great White North, out of Canada. And not only is he a bass player for this incredible band, he also happens to be a video game music producer as well for some games that you may have played. And today we are here to dive behind a brand new EP entitled Sunshower with Stuart Chatwood, bass player of the Tea Party. How's it going today, Stuart?
It's going great. Yeah, no, it's been very busy for us after the quiet times during COVID. We've released an EP, re-released our first independent record in Europe. They've combined the two EPs into a new album. And then myself, I've released just the early access version of my new soundtrack to a video game called Darkest Dungeon 2. So,
wow. So it's been very busy. Go from pretty much nothing happening at all, waiting, and then boom, everything is just coming at you in waves.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, of course, we actually have had one Jeff Burrows on the show before, back when you guys released the track Summertime, which was our first taste of this new EP. But of course, there's 4 other songs. And I'd love to know a little bit about what was it like for your side of the production of this album? Because I know that this took place a couple of years ago.
Yeah. We were very fortunate that we were all together in Vancouver in October 2019, and we were able to head to the Armory Studios, which is an incredible studio that was owned by Bruce Fairbairn, who worked, I think, with Aerosmith and Bon Jovi and a few of the bigger acts. His family, since Bruce has now passed away, his family runs it as a trust. But it's a top-of-the-line studio, and just you really need that to get the amazing drum sounds. And, like we don't use samples for anything, obviously. So everything's recorded live. So we were very lucky that October 2019, we had it in there for a week, and we were able to lay down, basically, you call them the bed tracks, but it's the foundation of the record. So you've got the bass, the drums, the beginnings of the guitar, and maybe an initial vocal, just so Jeff Martin can then take that back to Australia where he lives. And at his home studio, he can finish his extra guitars called overdubs and his vocals.
Mm-hmm.
It took a long time, though. I'm not going to lie. Our last full record for people in Europe was 2014, and for Canada, 2014, The Ocean at the End. And it took a while to get out Black River, which was the first EP in our plan, because we decided that instead of putting out an album every couple of years, let's put an EP out more rapidly. Because quite often you put an album out and the singles, they get 1 or 2 shots at becoming, more recognizable to people, and, either through airplay or video play, whatever. And the songs are kind of like your children. And if they get ignored, it's a very sad time. You spend a lot of time on these songs. So we thought, let's split the album into 2. And we had Black River in 2019. And now we have the second part, Sunshower. So in Europe, they've combined those 2 EPs into Blood Moon Rising, which is a full length record. But, just by doing it this way, we're able to get, I think 4 or 5 tracks that can be the focus of attention for people. And hopefully, because you never know what you're going to deal with at radio, at the record company, at your management office, people change, attitudes change. So it's just good to have time go by and to have, more chances at, because ultimately we want people to hear the music. So,
well, also with today's streaming world as well, too, it's sometimes maybe you release a couple singles and maybe they get a little bit more life, and sometimes people don't maybe get through an entire album. So maybe an EP is just a little bit more of a easier chunk for some people to break through as well.
Yeah. I mean, so often nowadays you're a fan of a particular artist, whether it be an author, a composer, a musician, and they'll release something that you weren't aware of. And you're like, how did I miss that? And, that's just the world we live in now. We're bombarded with stuff. So unless you're, sometimes you can hit that subscribe button on YouTube. And if you don't hit the bell beside it, YouTube's algorithm won't give you a video or whatever. So it's so difficult to follow artists that you like and enjoy. And, like I said, we're bombarded. So it's only human nature that, we can only handle so much information. So, I mean, we're in the process now of just, letting people know about this. But it is funny, though. We were on tour once playing Kingston, Ontario, and we played the show. And the show, I think, was sold out. It was a smaller theater, like 700 seats or something. And we went to a bar afterwards. And Jeff Martin, our singer, is pretty recognizable. He looks a bit like Jim Morrison, according to some people. We went to the bar, and some of our biggest fans were at the bar, and they're like, "Oh my God, Jeff Martin's at our bar. What are you doing here?" He's like, "I just finished my concert." And they're like, "No, you're kidding, down the street." So it's just the world we live in now, though. So, yeah. So if you hear us really promoting something a lot, take it to heart that, it's done with the knowledge that, we're not going to reach everyone, like the days of the monoculture where everyone got all their information from a few radio stations and much music, it's over, like if you paid attention to the press, you might believe that hip hop is like massive and all ruling, but then you go to Europe to see some festivals and you're like, oh my God, heavy metal is all ruling. And, there are all these different forms that maybe don't have the publicity that, some of the more prominent genres of music have. But things, trust me, things are festering underneath, in all genres. So, and, with Spotify and things like that, we can see where our music is being heard around the world. And it's pretty exciting because like a city like Istanbul, Turkey, albeit it's a big city, like 10 million people live in the area of Istanbul, but it's like our fourth or fifth biggest following city for the Tea Party in the world, and I never would have thought that, like there's like Toronto, Montreal, Sydney, Melbourne, Istanbul. It's like, huh?
Yeah, Canada, Australia, members of the bands live in both of those places. That makes sense. Oh, wait, but what? The middle of Europe? What? Huh?
I'll tell you a little backstory. We shot a video for the Bazaar in Istanbul. We never played a concert there ever, but we shot a video and it was on the rooftop. So taking advantage of the beautiful scenery, beautiful city, former capital of the Roman Empire. But we had a beautiful dancer with us, and the press came and interviewed us, took photos of us, and then they stuck around and took photos of the beautiful dancer. And we got to the airport after 4 or 5 days shooting, and we were on the front cover of the newspaper, but it wasn't us. It was the dancer. And we were on page 37 on the inside. So, but I mean, since that video, and, some of our instruments are reminiscent of, or the melodies are reminiscent. Actually, we were having dinner one night during that video shoot, and some street musicians were playing something that sounded like the Bazaar. We had already written the Bazaar, so we didn't know that, it was, a theme in folk music over there. So I think people hear the Bazaar, for example, and they're like, oh, wow, these guys like Turkish music, so I'm going to like them. So come by it naturally, I guess.
Hey, whatever it connects it to. That's part of the beauty of music, is everybody sort of takes their own interpretation of a song, of a sound, and they sort of make their own sort of life out of it. Even if you had a different idea for it, it becomes its own little thing, sort of like children, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, I mean, we're big fans of that. There's an African guitarist right now. I would have to search his name right now. It escapes me, but he's a solo guitarist, and he's got a band as well. They put out a record, and it's one of the most acclaimed records this year because he's taken his Tuareg music, and which is West Africa, just in the area north of Nigeria and to the west of Nigeria, I believe. But he has his guitar, bass, and drums, but then he has his melodies from his folk music, and just the two combining make something compelling and new for people. And to a certain extent, we were doing the same thing, but going the other way with our music. We had the world music instruments. We didn't play them in the same way. For example, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, his music with his harmonium, I would play harmonium different than he did with his band. So we were interpreting things a little differently. We created something new. I mean, some people accused us of cultural, appropriation and just co-opting things because we weren't authentic enough in their eyes. But for us, we feel that any exposure for people leads, it can lead you down a path that you can go more authentic, I mean, for us, Peter Gabriel and his Real World record label was a real touchstone of influence. The way he would gather artists around the world and bring them to Bath, England, a small town called Box, just outside of Bath, where his Real World studios were, and give them the opportunity to record at state-of-the-art equipment and make their, archaic records sound, beautiful and modern. So, and sort of do a time capsule, of things. So very influential on our band.
Mm-hmm. Well, and how does music grow and how does culture grow if people don't continue to explore, if they don't continue to learn? I mean, how do we grow, right?
Yeah, you're just constantly trying to reinterpret your own things of your past relatives, which, I mean, can lead you, to certain things and combining certain things, but it's a very limited set of toys you get to play with then.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Of course, I'd love to dive a little bit further into this latest EP as well. I mentioned there was the first single that came out earlier this year with Summertime, but before the EP dropped, you also had a second single, which brought in, let's say, a new toy to play with in a feature with one Todd Kearns for Hole in My Heart. So take us a little bit behind Hole in My Heart, and what was it like to work with Todd?
We met Todd for the most part in 1997 during the Edgefest tour. We were one of the headliners, and we had an infamous party in Montreal that raged till 5 a.m. And I think Age of Electric were one of the last bands to leave. I think, at that time we had just broken through where we were getting paid much more money than we had received prior. Because we were headlining this tour, and we thought, okay, let's take some of this money and have a giant party. So we bought, like $5,000 worth of drinks for all the bands, and everyone came around and, had a good time, but they missed their next show in Ottawa. So they showed up, I think, at 2:30, and they were set to go on at 4:00, and the promoter just said, no, we've already scrapped your set. And it's like, oh no. So on that whole tour, we got to hang out with them, and we loved Remote Control and all the Age of Electric music, of course. But Todd just moved in the same circles as us, and we knew he was a great singer. So we'd play this charity show in Toronto for Men Against Violence Towards Women, the White Ribbon Campaign, and they'd have a great show at the Phoenix Concert Theatre in Toronto, and we put together a band with just the three of us and Todd as a singer. And actually, Randy Lennox, the president of Universal Records at the time, he saw the show and he's like, you guys need to form a band. This is good. But we'd do some great covers, have a great time. That led to us, calling Todd up, who lived in Vancouver later, just to come see us at the Commodore and, jam out for the encore. And then right at the end of 2005, when the Tea Party broke up, we were actually recording some covers and different songs with Todd just as a side project. And that never got finished. But Hole in My Heart was one of the ones that we started in 2002. And then Todd sang on the track in 2005, September. And we just left it on the shelf until, this Sunshower EP came about. And we're looking for songs sort of, agreed with what we had done on Black River. So the final record would be harmonious. So we cut Hole in My Heart again at the Armory Studios, aforementioned Armory Studios. And then we called Todd up, who's in Vegas now, and we had him lay down a backing vocal. And just, he can hit those notes still that are very high. That Jeff Martin, as he ages, is getting more of a Leonard Cohen, deep baritone. So the two vocals work well together. So.
Oh, no, it works very well together. The song is fantastic, and it shows a different side of this EP. And that's another thing that I really love about Sunshower here, is it just sort of, you get, even though it's only 5 songs, and even with Black River too, there's very limited amount of songs, but you get a taste of all of those various different styles of the Tea Party, where like Summertime, you get that party rock track. And like with a song like specifically Sunshower, where you get exactly like that, maybe older school, that more mellow Tea Party feel. I love how you guys have really captured exactly what the band is inside of these songs.
Yeah, I would say the only thing missing on this EP maybe would be the world music and the electronics. But when we get together and write songs in each other's presence, you tend to revert back to what you know best, and what we know best is rock music. We grew up across from Detroit, where there are 4 amazing rock stations when we were like 10 and 12 years old, and by that age, we knew all the rock songs. We didn't know how to play them, and we didn't know the obscure rock songs, but we knew all the popular ones. So come high school, we got more into post-punk and the stuff out of England in the late 70s, early 80s. And when we were 18 and a little better on our instruments, that's when we rediscovered all the deep tracks off the Zeppelin records and the deep tracks from Hendrix, and because we could play a lot better and we could perform them. So that was really the basis when the band formed. We were a blues rock band, and that's what we reverted to really when we wrote some of the stuff off the Sunshower EP. So going back to the basics, it's more so when we were in each other's presence for a longer period that we delve into the world music stuff. Like in 1994 rather, we were touring across America and listened to, the real world music stuff, but also Dead Can Dance, which is a duo out of England, and it's an Irish singer and a New Zealand singer, and just the incorporate Celtic music and just stuff from around the world, and it's just a more folky version of what we were doing, really. So that played a heavy hand on what we did on The Edge of the Twilight. So it's a situation like that needs to occur again, probably for the world music stuff to find its way onto the record again.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Perfect. And you mentioned sort of that early sounds of the Tea Party. And you also mentioned earlier that you guys did exactly release a 30-year anniversary of that first Tea Party album. So not just reliving some of that, but also taking it straight back and also giving some of it. So what was it like to re-release sort of that piece of history?
Well, we couldn't remix it because we recorded it on some analog equipment that's just impossible to find now. But so we gave it a gentle remaster, and we brought up the levels a bit. So it sounds, it doesn't sound modern by any means. It'll stand out by a mile from our other recordings, but it gives you an authentic insight into a young band that wanted to record themselves, that learned, along the way. We started recording ourselves when we were like 14 years old, and had a tape-to-tape deck, and you'd record one track and then move that tape over to the track B, and then the new tape would be inserted, and then 2 things would be combined, and you could combine, what you recorded with a live thing onto the 3rd cassette, and, it was quite complicated, but that's how we recorded our first songs before 4-track. You felt like the Beatles and George Martin, really, like planning things out, okay, this is going to be lower frequency, which happens as you pass through each generation of recording. So let's record this stuff first and leave the high frequency stuff to the end, But, so with the indie, it was recorded in 1991. We made 3,000 records. They sold out rapidly, and there were only a few available on eBay for, I think at its peak, maybe $400 US. And people were tending just to do CDR rips of it, copies of it. So we thought, let's put something out that's an authentic, approved release so that anyone that wants to hear it. And of course, now it's on streaming sites. So you can go on to Spotify or Apple Music and just, search for the first record, the remastered first record, and get an idea of, what a blues rock band from Windsor, Ontario sounds like.
Exactly. You can get that new age feel of it. But of course, if you want to hold it physically in your hand, you can go ahead and do that as well by checking out the Tea Party's website. Go ahead and support awesome music, support the artists that you support as well, so that they can continue creating amazing music for you, whether it's in the form of a band, whether it's in the form of video games as well. And you mentioned there earlier that you happen to be working on the Darkest Dungeon 2 soundtrack. And Darkest Dungeon 1 was a game that you also did the soundtrack to that sort of blew up there. And this second game is definitely getting a lot more attention this time around.
Cover of PC Gamer, which is just incredible. And for an independent game, we went from 4 employees to 27 employees. And, so the company's run by 2 great guys, Chris and Tyler, and just they're just investing everything back into Vancouver jobs, really, and just supporting the industry. They have place a high value in artwork and the narration in the game and the music of the game. So you wouldn't know it's an indie game if you played it. So that's for sure. But I've been very blessed in my soundtrack career. I worked on 7 Prince of Persias, which were massive hits. And then, the first Darkest Dungeon sold 5 million copies. And, I don't want to tell you the number, but a lot of people bought the soundtrack, which just blew me away because I didn't think people bought soundtracks anymore. But I'm very blessed, to have the opportunity to supply music for the game. And, so we're working on this sequel, which is called Early Access, the release version that it's in right now. So we spend a whole year taking feedback from gamers that play the game and, what they like and what they hate, so we can improve it for the final release. So you can only buy it right now on the Epic Game Store. My soundtrack is also available there, or Bandcamp, or my website. So after a year, though, it'll come out on all formats, because the original game was out on, iOS devices, so iPads, iPhones, Android devices, I think, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch. So it's fun watching it all happen. So.
Hey, well, it's much more behind this game this time around, so I cannot wait to see what comes of it. And like you mentioned there, the early access is available on the Epic Game Store, and you can go ahead and hear a little bit of that epic soundtrack. Get yourself a little bit of a teaser, of a taste of what is going to be coming your way with that by doing exactly that. Going out and checking this game, supporting incredible artists.
Yeah, there's a few cuts already on YouTube. So if you follow my YouTube channel, you can hear the stuff for free as well. If I think it's going to come out on Spotify, Apple Music, maybe in the new year. So.
Hey, that's something that you've seen sort of take a rise inside of like Spotify too. Video game music has actually become like very popular on streaming platforms as well, which blows my mind.
Yeah, you just reach the world, and it's, I mean, I know we talked about that monoculture, but, there's only so many popular video games, and they just had the Video Game Awards, for example, but, to think all the 2 to 3 billion video game players are only playing these handful of games is just, incredible amount of focus. So I know from my feedback, I have followers, from 160 countries around the world, which is just unheard of. So
absolutely.
I did an interview with the Faroe Islands, So
oh my goodness.
It's pretty remote.
Yes, very, very. And that is incredible just to see like the reach that not just your music is, once again, the Tea Party, but also the music that you make otherwise, which at some point, some people, it's just a background soundtrack. As we've talked about, these soundtracks become a part of everyone's experience, of their time, of their memories. And it's incredible just what comes of music. It's truly magic.
The game is quite gothic and dark, so a lot of people have been using it and looping it for their tabletop Dungeons and Dragons games too. So at some point in the future, I might put out a tabletop version of the soundtrack. So tap into a new market.
Exactly. I was about to say, that's an entire market I didn't even think of.
Yeah, exactly.
Build the ambiance of the dungeons. Oh my goodness. I have had a fantastic time chatting here today, Stuart. I have one last question for you. Are you ready for it?
Okay.
All right, perfect. So we've talked about Sunshower, building this new EP, the process of getting to actually releasing it, sort of all of these beautiful things, re-releasing some of the history of the Tea Party. But what I would love to know now is over these past 2 years here, how exactly has this time helped you to grow as a person, or what has it taught you about yourself?
I mean, it's been a long period of time, so a lot of things have happened, of course. But I was able to buy an acoustic guitar from a local luthier here in Vancouver and work on my finger picking, which is just a style of music which I love. So it's very rewarding. So musically, I've been doing that. Of course, the soundtrack kept me busy for the full 2 years, and I'm still working on that. Quite often, the band tours in Quebec and occasionally over to Europe, to France or Belgium, whatever. But so speaking French is something that I wanted to work on during COVID. So I actually started every single day working on French, and I'm on day 610, I think now. So so I'm getting I'm like yourself, being a Canadian. I'm sure you have basic knowledge, but having the conversation and be able to respond when people talk to you in French is a goal, hopefully someday. But typically, I'd learn most of my French after the show in Trois-Rivières or some obscure French town where they don't speak English and they don't punish you for speaking broken French. So, and it's fun breaking through in another language. I don't know if you speak any other languages yourself, but
small amount.
Yeah.
small amount. I'm learning French. I'm learning Norwegian and a couple other things.
So, as for the Tea Party, though, we have always been separated and remote. Jeff Burrows lives in the Detroit, Windsor area. Jeff Martin lives in Australia. I live in Vancouver. And even when we were in each other's cities, we weren't in each other's back pockets. And I think that's led to the longevity of the band. We're brothers, respect each other, forgive each other. But, we don't have to be best friends with each other. So that's not a necessity. So.
Fantastic. Well, I thank you for sharing these lessons as well as the story of this new EP, Sunshower, this new album, Blood Moon Rising, here with us today on the Desert Tiger Podcast, Stuart.
All right. Have a good day.
You as well.